Chandler Bolt is the quintessential definition of entrepreneurial strength, wit, and grit needed to succeed in today's competitive business climate. He's an investor and the CEO of Self-Publishing School and self-publishing.com. He is also the author of 7 published books, including his most recent, entitled Published, The Proven Path to Blank Pages to 10,000 Copies Sold. Chandler knows exactly how instrumental writing can be in sharing your message and growing and scaling your business. His message is that you can't wait for the perfect time to start writing. The perfect time to start writing is now. Bolt joined me this week to have a conversation about writing, the correlation it has to business, and succeeding in the corporate world with the written word. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Chandler, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn how you use the power of writing to advance business. It's great to be with you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's great to see you today, buddy, and I want to start our conversation by asking you all about the Self-Publishing School and self-publishing.com and what it's all about, buddy.
Yeah, so Self-Publishing School, we're an online education company. We help people write and publish books that grow their impact, their income, and their business if they have one. And so I like to think of it kind of like a business accelerator or kind of like a year at college, but specifically for helping people get their books done. And so we believe that books change lives. We change lives through books by helping people write and publish powerful books that grow their impact and their business if they have one. So that's kind of similar with selfpublishing.com as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you are an author of 7 published books, and I know you're promoting a new book called Published. So tell me all about the new book and what it's all about, buddy.
Yeah. So Published, the new book, it's called Published, The Proven Path from Blank Page to 10,000 Copies Sold. And it's really a roadmap to go from idea or no idea to published author and selling a bunch of copies of your book. And so it's kind of a 10,000 foot view of a lot of the stuff that we teach. And so the goal is to help people that if you've been thinking about writing a book, or maybe you've already started writing a book, or for some people, it's even they've published a book and it's just not selling as well as they'd like it to. Well, then this book will be really helpful for folks to make it happen.
Chandler, I'm also curious to ask you, for those business people who want to use writing a book as a vehicle, but don't have a heck of a lot of time to do it, how do you think people can write effective books that still get the message across if they don't have a lot of time to write it? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the truth is, for almost no one has time to write a book, right? You're not going to find the time. You're going to have to make the time. And so if you're a business owner like myself, or if you're just busy, and then there's a couple things, like you're going to need to set aside the time. And the timing's never going to be right. And there's never going to be kind of a perfect time where you've got no job, no kids, no responsibilities, no business. You're going to have to get started before you're ready. But then once you do get started, what I recommend doing is following what I call the more writing method. Okay. And so I lay this out in the new book. It's M stands for mind map. O stands for outline. R stands for rough draft. E stands for editing. So you want to mind map all the ideas that you have around the topic of this book, then start to group groups of ideas into sections or so. And then you'll move from mind map to outline. So now all of a sudden you've got 5 sections, and the order that you want to cover them in the book, we'll call it 3 chapters per section. So now you've all of a sudden got a 15 chapter outline that you can use to then the R create the rough draft. And so that's like a flyby kind of like big picture view. But that's the process that makes it makes for a better book and for a faster rough draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chandler, I know that you're on the Forbes 30 under 30 list for your success in business, buddy. So I'm curious, what do you think is the key to success in business at such a young age, buddy?
Yeah. Well, I'm very fortunate that I've just had amazing parents. And so I think that's a big starting point. And, but I mean, they really, taught me a lot of really just helpful things. And so, but I would say for me, this is going to sound cliche, but it's discipline, hard work, it's focus, it's a lot of the intangibles, and I'll just outwork just about anybody. I love the Will Smith quote. I'm reading or listening to his biography right now, which has just been awesome. And he talks about how, if you put me and someone else on a treadmill to see who can keep going the longest, there's only 2 outcomes. Either I will win or I will die. Because he's like, you cannot outwork me. And so I think in some ways that's been a fuel to a lot of my success. Now, some points I look at that and I say, hey, what got you here won't get you there. Like, I don't know how sustainable that is in some ways for the long term, but I will say just working unbelievably hard, being disciplined, and then focus, which focus stands for follow one course until successful. And so really narrowing and saying, hey, what are the 1 or 2 things that I want to really focus on? And that's been self-publishing school. And when I'm writing a book, it's the book, but really focusing that effort and work ethic to grow things.
And Chandler, tell me, I'm also curious to ask you, how do we get more young people excited about writing? Because, we've transitioned to such a digital age these days, but I still think there's great power and productivity in writing. So how do you think we get young people excited about writing?
Yeah. Well, I think so. The way I look at it is that kind of like I said at the top, books change lives, right? They change the lives of readers. They change the lives of authors. So if you're someone who's thinking, I've thought about writing a book and I want this to be part of my legacy, I think it's one of the best things that you can do to create an impact beyond you, right? To scale your impact, to leverage your impact. And then if you're a business owner, it's one of the best things that you can do to grow your business. The first version of my book published brought in, it's brought in millions of dollars in revenue for self-publishing school over the years, right? And my goal with the second edition is to bring in tens of millions of dollars in revenue for self-publishing school over the next few years, right? And so I look at, there's that like that's one of the goals, and then obviously like the goal is to help people with the book. And so you create this vehicle where I can help a lot of people at a huge scale. And oh, by the way, it just happens to be really helpful for my business and for the impact I'm trying to make on the world. And so I think that's really exciting. And so I think if you're thinking about it, it's one of the best things that you can do to grow your business, to grow your impact, and to grow your authority. I mean, the root word of authority is author. You can't spell the word authority without the word author. And so it's a really great way to build authority.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Trevor, I'm also wondering your thoughts on the keys to business diversification as it relates to inclusion. Buddy, I was born with cerebral palsy, and part of my professional background is helping folks with disabilities, all sorts of disabilities, find and maintain employment. So I'm curious, from a business perspective, how do you think we can create a more inclusive environment?
Yeah, I love that you asked that, and I love the passion that you have for this, man, and the work that you're doing here. It's just awesome. So good for you, man. It's really cool. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways. There's representation, right? People need to see people like them doing that thing to say, oh, I can do that. And well, then how do you get there, right? Well, you give opportunities, and not even just give opportunities. You open up opportunities, right? Because I think in a lot of cases, these people are earning the opportunity and not being given it, right? And so it's how do you democratize the opportunity, which I think that is in a lot of ways the beautiful thing about self-publishing is that there's no gatekeepers, right? And it's not me saying you can get published, you can't, you can't, and making the decision, right? And all these, but it's saying, okay, how do we help, regardless of your race, sexual orientation, regardless of a lot of things, like how do we help give you the best tools so that you can run with those tools and write and publish a book that you're proud of? And so I think that's I think that's maybe big picture how I look at it, but then also how I think we're trying to make an impact. And are we doing a good job? I mean, I think maybe we're making progress in some ways. Are we like the model citizen that I would point to? I don't know that I would say that, but I think a lot of the work that you're doing is really cool and exciting. And that's how I hope that we're making a difference with this as well.
Yeah, when it comes to marketing, too, I'm curious to ask you about marketing a book when you don't have a heck of a lot of experience. How do you think we do that successfully?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the age-old chicken or the egg problem, right? Is like, do I build an audience and then publish a book, or do I publish a book to build an audience? And I know I'll speak for what worked for me. So for me, I didn't have a big audience when I first started. I was 19 years old and published my first book, but there's a few kind of core things. I mean, I think it starts with getting very specific to who you're writing to and your audience. And the more specific, the better. The better that book, the better the quality of the book will be, and the better the book will sell. But then I look at, okay, how do I launch the book successfully? And so it's the concept of a launch triangle. So creating a launch team, getting reviews, and then doing promotions. Those are kind of the three important things in that launch triangle. And so a launch team, this is a small group of people that support you or the topic of your book. And so that could be 15 people, 50 people. So there's building a launch team, then there's using that launch team to get reviews, but also getting reviews outside of that. And then there's promoting the book, which there's just a lot of ways that you can do that without needing an audience. It's a lot of elbow grease. It's a lot of one-to-one outreach, podcast interviews like this, and a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Chandler, that you're a veteran podcaster yourself. So tell me all about the podcast you're host, buddy, and what it's all about.
Yeah. So, I've host a podcast called the Self-Publishing School Podcast. Also host a podcast called the Seven Figure Principles Show. That's kind of more of the archives of how to grow and scale a company. I'm not actively podcasting there, but yeah, Self-Publishing School, our goal, the Self-Publishing School podcast, the goal is to bring on some of the best, most successful, authors, and talk about how they publish their books successfully. Right. And so that's, and kind of really unpacking what does it take to publish a book, to sell more books, all that. So it's been a lot of fun. And then that's been the kind of the dual side of things, right? Is I have my own podcast where I get to, talk to people that are very interesting and learn from them and make connections and meet cool people. And then, get to go on podcasts and talk about my book and what we're doing with Self-Publishing School and meet interesting people like you, which is fun as well.
Absolutely. And tell me, what do you think the overall legacy of Self-Publishing School and selfpublishing.com is, buddy? What do you want it to be?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. And I hope that we change a lot of lives through books. We've published about 6,000 books so far in the last 7 years. Our goal is to publish 100,000 books by 2035. And so the end goal is, every book that we publish, and this is just being super conservative, we feel like impacts the lives of 1,200 people. So I look at how do we publish 100,000 books and impact the lives of 120 million people and change their life for the better through these books. And so we want to help put the power back in the hands of authors. We want to help people publish successfully, use their book to grow their business. Like all those things are things that we get really excited about. And I feel like we're 7 years into the journey, and I don't see a finish line, at least not anytime soon. So it's just a lot of fun, and it's working with authors, learning, getting better, and I mean it's why I'm excited every day to get up and work with our authors, because it's a lot of fun.
Embrace the process of the grind, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chandler, I'm wondering your thoughts also on whether you think there's a correlation between having an impact and being fulfilled. What do you think that looks like for you? I'm curious.
Oh, that's interesting. Because you can have an impact and not be fulfilled, right? I think fulfillment, and gosh, in a lot of, I mean, my fulfillment personally, I think in a lot of ways comes from my faith, but it also comes, so I think it's kind of dual part. It comes from my faith, and then it also comes from an internal gratitude and recognition of the gifts and blessings that have been given to me and the things that have happened, right? Because you think about some of the people who have maybe made the largest impact might not feel fulfilled. Which is, I can make a huge impact and not feel fulfilled. And so I almost view some of fulfillment is your interpretation of what's happening, right? If it's the whole, what is it? The E plus R equals O, the event plus your reaction equals the outcome. I almost feel like it's similar in this case, where it's, okay, I can make the impact, and maybe that'll be larger or less, but then there's my interpretation of that, which can lead to part of how I am personally fulfilled. I don't know if that makes sense, the way I'm explaining it, but that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also wondering, where does your energy and passion for writing come from, and how do you think people can use energy and passion to be great writers? I'm curious.
Yeah, man, I love books. They changed my life. and you know, but I will say, like, I think what can be maybe be encouraging for people is that, you know, I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout with ADHD. So I'm the person who didn't like writing, and I didn't like reading, and I would do everything but that in school and all that, is because I didn't like it. But then I dropped out of school, or dropped out of college, and I realized I need to treat my education like I'm still in school, but change the mechanism, right? So instead of going to class, I'm maybe going to a conference, or going to an online or you know, a conference or an online course or something like that. Instead of a textbook, I'm reading books, and so I just kind of started to fall in love with books, and they've changed my life, and so I think that's a big part of it. And then I think just waking up and knowing that, hey, I've got a gift that I've been given, and a passion for this. And so this is how I can make a difference, and having a lot of fun doing it. So like you said, embracing the grind and the process. And it's something I talk to my team about somewhat often, which is, you know, there's just moments along the journey where you have to pause and reflect, and you say, if I don't like doing this, why am I doing it? You got to enjoy the journey, not the outcome or the mountaintop experiences. Because if you're just looking for the next mountaintop, well, then you're going to be pretty frustrated. And so that's the goal for me, is to celebrate along the way. And it's the goal. It doesn't always happen, right? But to celebrate along the way and to enjoy the journey. And I think for writers and for authors, like if you keep that in mind, you realize that, hey, this is a long journey. This is not just like a launch week, or this is not a 90 days to try and finish a rough draft, but it's part of a bigger thing that you're working towards.
Enjoy the process, and not so much being concerned about the destination, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and Chandler, I'm curious, if they made a trailer video about your life and you only had 30 seconds to a minute to get your message across in the trailer, what do you think would be the one message you would want to convey about the totality of your life and the impact that you made?
Man, Kevin, you ask great questions. It would be that life's short. Don't take it for granted. I had a friend pass away when I was 21, 22 years old, right in front of me. And it made me realize that it's so cliche, but life is short. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. Do things that you love and work towards things that matter. And at the end of your life, you're going to look back and, or at least I think, and say, hey, did I leave it all on the field? And did I work with the talents that were given to me and work with a sense of urgency to help some people around me and to live, as you said, fulfilled life? And have I made an impact? And do I feel fulfilled in that? And so I think that is, I hope, is what I'm doing. And I hope to be remembered for that and to build a legacy through what we're doing through books, through self-publishing school, and through what's to come.
Yeah, and finally, I guess my final question for you would be, when you look at writing, I know it's not for the faint of heart, and I know it's not, you sit down and you have thoughts and it magically becomes a book. So tell me about your message to aspiring writers about embracing the process of writing and the ups and downs that come with that. I'm curious.
Yeah, so I would say, kind of echoing what I mentioned earlier, you're going to have to get started before you're ready. And none of what I talk about matters if you don't get started, right? It's hypothetical, theoretical information, but so you got to get started. That starts with, I'd recommend as soon as you get done listening to this, you grab a blank sheet of paper, you put your book topic in the middle of the page, set a timer for 15 minutes, and start mind mapping everything you can think of on the topic of your book. And so you're going to have to get started before you're ready. And then, like you said, it's ups and downs, so that narrow your focus on the rough draft and getting a rough draft done, and know that it's not a matter of if challenging times will come, but when. And just knowing that they're gonna come can help. But that's why I recommend having, kind of a guide in that process and some accountability in that process, so that you keep going when it gets tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chandler, tell me, if people want to get connected with you personally or the work you're doing with Self-Publishing School or selfpublishing.com, what's the best way they can do that, buddy?
Yeah, so two things that might be helpful. So if you're interested in grabbing, first thing, if you'd like to talk to the team at Self-Publishing School about your book and start to plan together and how we might be able to help, go to self-publishingschool.com/apply, book a call with the team at that link, and we're happy to chat with you about your book. That's first thing. Second thing is, if you'd like a copy of my new book, it's called Published: The Proven Path from Blank Page to 10,000 Copies Sold. What I'd like to do is give away 50 free copies to anyone in the US. Okay. And this is, I'm going to ship it, pack it, print it, everything for free. You don't pay anything. Just tell me where to send it. And so for that, go to publishedbook.com/Kevin. So because you're friends with Kevin, we'll hook it up. No strings attached. You don't have to pay anything. Just tell me where to send the book. And then you can also obviously find the book on Amazon. You can download the audiobook from Audible. I narrate it, so I kind of recommend the audiobook. But if you want a physical copy, go to publishedbook.com/Kevin.
Well, Chandler, as I told you at the beginning of this, I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks, buddy. I was an English and journalism major in college, so I was particularly interested in our conversation, and it didn't disappoint, buddy. I want to thank you for being here this afternoon and for engaging in conversation with me. It's most appreciated.
Kevin, you're the man. This was so much fun. You asked amazing questions, and I love the work that you're doing. So thank you for having me here.